What's up, everybody? Let's do this thing. Hello, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Is September 27th, 2017. Welcome to episode, I think it is 22 of The Drop Set. My name is Darren Starr. As always, your host, running solo here without any help from any kind of production team, which, always makes for some adventurous times here. So today especially, so we'll get into that here. So I'm broadcasting live on Instagram. Hello, Instagram. Wave to all the people there. And on Facebook. Hi, wave to all the people on Facebook. So that live Facebook feed will go up on YouTube as well. And to those of you listening audio only through either iTunes, Google Play, or on the website, welcome to you as well. Hopefully you will not. Hopefully we will not delve too much into the visual aids, so that you can still get a lot out of this just audio only. I will be responding to comments. Hey Rose, how you doing? Throughout. So again, for all of those of you listening in the non-interactive format, my apologies, but you'll suffer through. So today should be interesting. So I am here sweating like a pig at 5-Star Physique headquarters because our AC is broken. So the exciting thing is that there are some AC repairmen that are due here. Could be any time, might not be till 5. So hopefully they will not come here for the next 45 minutes while we're trying to record this. If they do, my dog will make some apocalyptic barking, and it will sound like the end of the world, and I'll have to go on hiatus and answer the door. So won't that be exciting? Wow, that'll make for some really, really thrilling live broadcast video. So anyway, so we've got some topics to cover today. I've got a few of them lined up. We'll see what we get to, so I don't want to spoil the surprise ahead of time. We'll just save it. Recapping the week that was, lots more social media work getting done. More videos up on YouTube. So over the past 2 weeks now, I think I'm up to about 105 videos added in the past couple weeks. And it's just a big unsorted mess. If you follow me on Pinterest, I've categorized those things into sections. So there's like a pin board for shoulder videos, a pin board for leg videos. So a little bit more accessibility there. If you go to Pinterest and just search 5-Star Physique, you'll find me there. Instagram, Facebook, keeping up with you guys as best as I can. The website continues to get updated. I'm revamping the members section. So for existing clients, we'll be moving our check-ins there and doing a web form where you can upload all your attachments and answer the questions that I care about on a weekly basis, as opposed to emailing me. I had some adventures in email this week as my hosting company. They decided they weren't going to deliver any emails to me for about 12 hours on Monday from about noon to midnight. And everything eventually made it through, but it really slowed me down. And I was sitting here just staring at my inbox like a dumbass, like, why isn't anybody emailing me? What's up? And then a couple clients texted me like, are you getting emails? No. So a couple phone calls later, and I figured it out. So let's see. I am on Spotify as well. I don't know if I've mentioned that or not, but uh-oh, he just barked. Hopefully that doesn't mean anything. So if you search 5-Star Physique on Spotify, you will find a couple of playlists that I put up there. So because music is important, and I just figured I would share with people what I'm listening to. So a couple of handcrafted playlists up there so that you can kind of see. I mean, I'm going to tell you, they all fit my musical taste, and it's not for everybody. So if you like, anything current, anything that you might hear on the radio, you're not going to get that from my playlists. Sorry. So what you will get, I've got one up there that's a metal/progressive playlist. So everything from Meshuggah to Dream Theater to Stone Sour to a little Five Finger Death Punch. And then I put one together recently that's hair bands. So going from, Van Halen to, which it pains me to consider them a hair band, but I know that they are. Van Halen to Bon Jovi to Extreme to Ozzy. So anyway, those are up there now. I think there's going to be some revisions to a couple of those, but if you go to Spotify and search 5-Star Physique, you can see the ones that I have up there now. Workout plans continue to evolve and grow online. I've got 3 of them available up there now. So if you go to 5starphysique.com, click on workout plans, you can see what I've got up there. Pretty happy with the way those look. So check them out, see what you think. So we've got some stuff to cover. Let's start with the the basic sections first. So our myth here, this is a good one that I like, because this goes back to, if you I remember reading like muscle and fitness magazines in the 90s, and this was always what people were talking about then, and it's still what people talk about today. And it has to do with how your training changes from when you are in the off season and you go into a pre-contest phase or a cutting phase, a dieting phase, anything like that. So what they always say is, for your off season, you want to go low reps and heavy weight, and for your pre-contest phase, you want to go higher reps, lower weight. That is, first of all, dumb. And second, it is such a gross oversimplification of how training intensity works. And the reason why is because, to explain it properly, it doesn't really sell magazines, I think, realistically. When you're selling magazines and subscriptions, you want to give people easy answers. You want to let them know, like, hey, we can do this, this is doable. I can wrap my head around this concept. When, I'd say the nuts and bolts of that, there's some truth to it, but like I said, it is such an oversimplification. So the overall amount of work that you do should be the same. Now, when you have less gas in the tank, what you're going to find is hitting those 1 rep, those low rep PRs that you've been hitting before, they're probably not going to come as easily, especially if you're a natural athlete. You're going to find, when you've got less fuel in the tank, your body just doesn't have as much ability to move stuff. And again, moving stuff isn't the number one priority. So I would say, realistically, we shouldn't be focusing on trying to, hit PRs every time out necessarily. You want to go by feel, which unfortunately, the reason why PRs, which is personal records, personal bests as far as weight moved, the reason why that is such an appealing concept is because it is such an easy one to wrap your head around. But if you can divorce yourself from that way of thinking and think about overall work done, meaning force moved, how much weight you're actually moving, the distance over which you move it, and then also the time involved. And so time is one variable that everybody underestimates. And the time meaning if you slow it down, you're doing more work. So the overall tactics, if you want to build muscle during a growth phase, or if you want to preserve it when you're at a caloric deficit on a cut, the tactics are the same. So you don't need to necessarily change your training style just because your diet changes. Your expectations may change a little bit. You may find, oh, wow, I've done this before at 250 pounds. It feels a lot heavier today. Yeah, that's to be expected. But you don't change your programming around that. You will say, all right, well, I'm going to go with a weight that I feel where I can move and I can feel the muscles working the best. And I might end up being a little bit lower on certain days, and that's okay. So that's the myth. So there you go. A rant. Uh-oh. Are you growling, buddy? Are you No? Okay. All right. Come here. Say hi. Say hi to everybody out there. Oh, he's gotten really shy. Oh, my goodness. He looks like he's in trouble. You want to jump up? Come on, buddy. It's okay. Trying to keep the dog happy. So a couple of rants, just brief ones. Somebody suggested you should talk about gym etiquette a little bit. Boy, let me tell you. What I could talk about gym etiquette for days, and it would just make me more angry. But there's one thing that in particular troubles me. So you've all seen this setup in the gym where you've got your cable crossover station. Typically there's some kind of a lat pull down seated row configuration on either side of it, and then on the outsides you've got the area where that's the adjustable pulleys. People do their tricep stuff there, their press downs and that kind of stuff. The thing that I hate the most is when somebody goes to the inside of that, where you're going to be doing cable flies, cable crossovers, and they do tricep press downs in there. Because you're taking one side of that thing and making sure that nobody can use both sides of it, which is what it's there for. So stop it. I don't care if the lighting is better there. I don't care if you have a better view of the mirror inside there. If you're only going to use one of those cables, go to the friggin' outside. Get out of the middle. Thank you. All right, I've said my piece. My other rant is related to one from last week. I mentioned I was looking for a coach last week. That search continues. I've been, emailing more people and getting more and more disappointed every day. And the most common response is no response. A more common response is like 5 or 6 words, not capitalized, something misspelled, no punctuation. And it just makes me wonder, how do you work with people online when you can't even write an email? How do you expect, bodybuilding is complex. You don't know who I am. I mean, I'm emailing them. I'm telling them who I am. They don't know me. I'm nobody. I'm no celebrity or anything like that. So nobody knows who I am. I tell them, I'm a coach too. I'm just looking for some extra accountability, blah, 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 blah. They don't... There's so much information to get across, and if you can't communicate in a way that gets that detail through, how can you expect people to succeed? So what I've recognized is that there are a lot of coaches out there who work online and also work in person, and the vast majority of their success stories comes from the people that they see in person, which is something that, didn't seem obvious to me at first because since I've been working online, I've been doing that exclusively and not working with anybody in person. So anyway, that search continues. I'll keep you all updated on that, and if anything ever happens, I'll let you know. It's not looking good at this point, so we'll see how it goes. I don't want to be my own coach again because I've had enough experience with that, and I'm sure somebody out there can do a better job of whipping me into shape than me. I always tell people I am by far my own worst client. There may be always a couple challengers for that throne, but it's always me. So, okay, topic number 1. This will be a quick one just because it's really easy and really basic. Timing your training. So, the question is always, when should I do my cardio? When should I lift? So let's answer both of those questions in the most basic way that we can. If you can hit your cardio fasted, do it. If you can hit your training at 2 or 3 in the afternoon, do it. Okay, there you go. So topic over. Those are the ideal times. Now, I would say that applies to steady state cardio as far as doing it fasted. Doing interval cardio fasted, not so much. And I know there's a cadre of people out there that will say training fasted is awesome, like lifting fasted. And I will say, no, it's not. You do not understand pre-workout nutrition if you think that training fasted is awesome. It is not good. You don't want to do that. So, let's break it down a little bit more. Let's start with cardio first. So if you can hit it fasted, great. I find that for most people, it is marginally more effective. Like, let's say maybe somewhere between 5 and 10% more effective if you're able to get up and hit that fasted first thing in the morning. Now, if you're unable to do that, I would first of all say, no, you're not. No one is unable to hit fasted cardio. Now, it may be more of a challenge, and the question then becomes, is the challenge or the sacrifice and trade-off that you'd have to make in order to do that worth it? And I like to be fairly hardcore, and I like to push people out of their boundaries, but the answer is not always no. The answer is not always going to be yes, you always must do it regardless of the sacrifice. I mean, because sleep is important. And so if you're going to sacrifice an hour of sleep when maybe you aren't getting enough already, I'm not sure that I would say that that's worth it. Now, I would say maybe we can make up for that sleep by, putting down your phone or your iPad earlier at night and falling to sleep earlier. So that's a possibility. But again, you can hit cardio and have it be effective pretty much any time. Fasted, maybe a little bit more effective, but not so much. Not a huge difference. Not a huge difference. Post-workout is a good time as well. I always tell people, one of the benefits of hitting cardio is not just the calories that you burn while doing it, but also the post-exercise oxygen consumption boost that you get after doing it. So basically, your metabolism is elevated for a little bit after hitting a cardio session. So if you hit cardio fasted, you get that boost there, you carry that for a little bit, then you go and lift later, you get that boost renewed basically, because if you lift correctly, it's like cardio, your heart rate gets up, so we get that same benefit there. If you lift and then jump straight into post-workout cardio, you're doubling up. So while that cardio is still effective, it's not quite as effective as if you split it up a little bit. So under ideal circumstances, if we're looking to go absolutely like, this is how we maximize results from our cardio, this is how we get the most bang for our buck, hit some fasted cardio, lift a couple hours later, go back later in the day and hit a second cardio session. So even if I'm asking, we're going to hit 40 minutes of cardio today, great. Get up and hit 20. Since it's a short session, you should be able to hit that at a slightly higher intensity level, minute per minute, than you would otherwise. Like if you wanted to slog out a 40-minute session, it's just necessarily, because we're human beings, going to be a little bit more like that. 20 minutes, you can kind of get up for it and kind of snap it out and make it a little bit more intense. Then we lift, and then we come back and hit another 20 minutes later in the day. That's much preferable to doing one 40-minute cardio session and a lift. So the example I always give people is if you're supposed to do an hour of cardio a day and you have two choices, one 60-minute session or 61-minute sessions, the latter is going to get you more bang for your buck. Now, it's not practical, which is why I say maybe two 30-minute sessions is a better trade-off. So a little bit more realistic that way. Don't do cardio before you lift. Lifting is hard. Cardio, while tiring, is not particularly hard. It doesn't require a lot of concentration. It doesn't, demand a lot from your brain. You've just got to go and do it. So what you need to do is wear yourself out lifting. Go in there fresh with your brain fully engaged and lift and concentrate and focus and squeeze and really think about what you're doing and train. Don't just go and lift weights, but train, which is an active process for your brain. If you wear yourself out with 30 or 40 minutes of cardio and then you do that, it's not going to be as effective. And also, you're taking your pre-workout fuel and you're using it for something that doesn't necessarily need it, which is cardio. So cardio timing is not reliant upon your diet or nutrient timing necessarily. I mean, fasted is great. Avoiding nutrient intake beforehand, banging out 20, 30, 40 minutes fasted, awesome. Outside of that, though, you don't need a pre-workout meal. You don't need a post-workout meal for a cardio session. So just the main thing is squeezing it in when you can and making it work for you. Understanding that small adaptations to your schedule can be helpful, but are not totally necessary in order to be successful. Now, when it comes to lifting, this is something that, cardio, we can kind of, squeeze it in here, squeeze it in there, etc. Lifting is a little bit more of an event. It takes some planning, and because of that planning, the answer as far as when you should do it, drifts a lot more into the category of whenever you can make it work. If that's first thing in the morning, cool, just because we all have lives, we have to work, we have kids, we have other responsibilities, so we need to squeeze in the lift. That is non-negotiable. You can't let your routine overtake your need to get in a quality lift if you're really serious about progressing, at least not consistently. Every now and then maybe you can get away with that. But just getting it in when it's convenient in your schedule is what's really important. So the considerations to take into account there. You need ample time for your pre-workout nutrition to kick in. So it depends on what that meal looks like. So if it's liquid, which there are a lot of good options out there for proteins, carbs, and fats that you can get in liquid form, typically it's going to be a little bit faster. If you have faster digesting carbs, carbs that are a little bit higher in sugar, that cuts down on the time that needs to pass between eating that and being ready to lift. So things that I tend to favor, just because, again, if you've been listening to me or following me for any length of time, I'm a lazy SOB. So I always go the path of least resistance. So my pre-workout meal is usually a protein shake and then maybe some cereal with almond milk or something like that. So if I'm trying to be good and stick with something a little bit cleaner, I'll go with cream of rice, throw a little honey in there, something like that. I can get that in my system and then be lifting 20 to 25 minutes later and feel like I've got some stuff in me. It's a little rushed, and these days I've adjusted my schedule so I can usually get in 2 meals before I go in, rather than getting up, eating immediately, and then heading to the gym almost immediately. So other things to consider, Rose mentioned in an Instagram comment here, never understood the concept of lifting fasted. Yeah, I mean, it's a thing. I don't have a defense of it prepared because I don't believe in it. I've done it before. I've worked with clients who have done it before, and invariably you do it once or twice and you get this impression like, wow, this feels awesome. This is so different. I feel, there's less in my stomach, blah, 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 blah. It's just like you change up anything. I could hand somebody a supplement and say, take this is awesome. And it's like, vitamin C or something. But, if I plant the seed in their head that it's going to do something, they're going to feel that. It is a placebo effect. And I think most of the effects that people feel from fasted training is the placebo effect of it. Because they've changed something and they've been told it's a really good thing. So, yeah, this is awesome. And then if they stick with it, and if they are training at an appropriate intensity, before long they realize, my performance sucks when I train fasted. Not good. And I understand that there are other schools of thought on that. There are people that strongly disagree with me on that, and that is okay. I'm okay with that. But if you're working with me, you're going to be eating before you lift, and that's all there is to it. So, because there's no debate as far as whether or not that is effective. There is a debate as far as whether or not fasted training is effective. For me, yeah, Rose says, I tried it once. Performance was, I won't say that word just because I'm trying not to get censored by YouTube. Couldn't lift heavy. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. If you're going at an appropriate intensity, you're going to find your performance sucks. So that was the end of that. Yeah, I hear you. I tried it a couple times. Not a fan. Not a fan. Now, bonus as far as, when the best time to lift is, for me, being the massive once-in-a-generational introvert that I am, for me, the question of when to lift is always, when are there the fewest people in the gym? When can I go in and have the most space to myself, not have to fight people for equipment, not have conversations with people? That's my consideration. And so I kind of like to think that right now, with the way that my job and my lifestyle are set up, having a fairly flexible schedule when it comes to coaching, and having, typically not a lot of time-specific commitments during the day, I feel like all of that is been geared up towards letting me go to the gym when I suspect there are going to be the fewest people in there. I really wish that my gym had some kind of live webcam so that I could see the gym floor from home, wait until the crowd's dissipated, and then head on over there. They don't. Maybe I'll put that in the suggestion box. That'd be nice. I know they have security cameras in there. Just, broadcast one of those so that we can see the gym floor. I can look at it on your website from home, be like, all right, cool. The bros are gone. I can go in. So that's my consideration. Let's see, Arthur comments, I eat almost 3/4 of my daily carb intake pre-workout, then I suffer the rest of the day. Yeah, that's about right. That's about right. Now, that should be, pre and post, Arthur. Don't out yourself right there. Some of that should be post also. All right, so that's timing. So basically, it's not super important, but there are some considerations if you really want to maximize what you get out of it. Pre-workout nutrition is important. Fasted cardio is a nice little benefit, but not absolutely required. Don't do cardio before you try to do a really intense lifting session. And that's pretty much it. So we're going to try and simplify things a little bit here. Now that we've simplified things, okay, I'm not alone in my introvertedness. So thank you, Rose. Now that we've simplified that a little bit, let's go into a concept that I always get some pushback on, and I have a really hard time selling people on this concept. So the concept is why posing is important. And specifically, because if I'm trying to sell that concept to a competitor, it's pretty easy. Now that doesn't necessarily make everybody who has competitive aspirations work on their posing as much as they should, but it's a pretty easy sell. Like, yes, you need to work on your posing because you're going to be up on stage doing those poses, and you will be judged specifically on how you look in those poses. So guess what? It's a good idea to practice. But why should you practice posing if you have zero intentions of competing? This is where I get the resistance from people. So it all comes down to two words. Anybody? Bueller? No? All right. The words are body awareness. Now, also you could come down, you could talk about coordination. You could talk about mind-muscle connection. Basically, posing is an exercise in body awareness. So if I want people to hit their quarter turns, so front, side, back, other side, turning 90 degrees at a time. Yeah, you automatically thought this didn't apply to you, but it does. So you better listen, Rose. Yeah, I'm telling you. So you hit that front pose, side, back, other side. What you're focusing on when you do that is making sure that everything that the hypothetical judge or the camera or you in the mirror can see is flexed. So every muscle from head to toe is flexed if it can be seen by whoever you are doing this for, hypothetically. That is hard. So think about a front pose, starting from the feet up. I'm going to give you a pass on your anterior tibialis. You don't need to flex your shin muscles necessarily, but quads need to be engaged, abs engaged, diaphragm up, rib cage lifted and expanded, chest engaged, lats flared, shoulders engaged. You want to get a little bit of tension in the arms and the forearms as well. Doing all that at the exact same time is really, really hard. And then turning around and doing it from the back. So you've got to worry about your calves now. Hamstrings. How many of you listening there can flex your hamstrings without bending your knee? Show of hands, it's tough. It's a difficult body awareness challenge, but it is something where if you can do that, then I guarantee, and this is why we practice posing even if you're a non-competitor, if you can flex your hamstrings without bending your knee, then I guarantee you when it comes time to do any kind of a hamstring exercise, your ability to engage and connect with what your hamstrings are doing and make them work harder is going to be higher. That is why you work on posing, because everything that you do as far as increasing your body awareness and increasing your ability to activate and engage a muscle has a direct translation to how you're able to activate and engage that muscle when you're working. So let's say you're doing a back exercise and you're doing pull downs. Great. All right, cool. You finish your set and you're like, whew, that's tough. All right, cool. Now let's have a different version of you do that. And it's a version of you that works on posing and works on trying to flare your lats all the time. And I talk about this specifically just because for people who start doing this, learning how to flare your lats and getting them engaged so that you can actually see them for the first time is a skill that, I'm not going to lie, some people never figure it out. And it's not something that is very easy to teach. You know, I can tell you the motions to go through all the time, but it's like, you know, trying to teach somebody to ride a bike. You know, you can tell them, oh, well, you get on the bike, you put your foot here, you put your hands here, and then you just don't fall over. You know, well, okay, easier said than done, but, you know, you need to fall down a few times and get up, and then eventually you figure it out. Same thing with flaring your lats. I can give you all of the verbal cues all day long, but you just need to practice it, and it's tricky. It's tricky. So, by default, my assumption when I first start working with somebody is, I bet you can't flare your lats. And my assumption is usually borne out by their progress photos. And I say, okay, flare your lats, and there's just nothing there. Like, all right, maybe we need to grow your lats, but I know you got something. So let's see them in the photos. And they're like, I am. I'm like, no, you're not. All right. So that kind of helps set the tone for what we need to work on as far as activation is concerned. So if you can't flare your lats, how can you expect them to work at peak efficiency during an exercise? Yeah, tricky, huh? Now, you can make them work because just going through the motions here, if you think about, okay, squeezing my back, I mean, it's not exactly the same, but if you're able to just sit here, you know, sit in my chair, and like right now, you know, you saw, you know, I kind of sat up a little bit, but right now, my lats are flared. So, and it's just, they're engaged, they're tense. I could sit like this all day until, you know, I stop thinking about it, and then I'm going to slump down a little bit like that. But if you can do that without making a huge production out of it, like, okay, I'm going to stand up here, I'm going to, you know, really, you know, pull my shoulders back, and then I'm going to bring them forward, and then I'm going to bring my arms way out to the side and go through all these ridiculous gesticulations. Okay, sure, you can activate your lats doing that, but can you do it more subtly? Like, can you just sit here and then be like, all right, they're engaged, cool. If you can do that, I guarantee that when you do an exercise where you're trying to engage them, first of all, it's going to be easier to get them working as hard as they should and really activate as much of that muscle as you can, but you're also going to be more aware of when you're doing it correctly. So where people typically struggle with that, the lats are a big one, probably the biggest. Hamstrings would be second. So hamstrings are extremely difficult to activate just because most of the time, most of the exercises that people do for hamstrings, they're really easy to have other muscle groups do the work. So on leg curls, you know, if your ankles are tight and you really engage your calves are going to take the brunt of that work away from the hamstrings. You know, they're going to be tense, they're going to be flexed isometrically. Your hamstrings are going to be doing less work. You're going to be using more hips and lower back in that movement. Same thing with Romanian deadlifts. It's really easy to bend forward, but can you actually rotate the hips forward and get the hamstrings stretched so that they feel that cue that they need to activate and contract to get you back up? So hamstrings, very easy to go through an entire hamstring workout without properly engaging the muscle even once for one rep. So focusing on squeezing them. So, you know, stand up right now. Stand up, put your hand on one of your hamstrings and just feel it. You know, just standing there nice and relaxed. Okay, it's nice and loose. Doesn't really feel like there's a whole lot there. Now flex it. Keep your foot flat on the floor and flex it and feel with your hand. You know, can you do it? That's the big question. If you can, great. Practice that. Get really good at it. Keep your hand back there now as you pick up your foot and you flex your knee and you allow your leg to curl back up behind you. Feel how the shape of the muscle changes. Feel how the amount of tension in it changes throughout that. And then think about how you can take that and apply that into the gym the next time you're doing a leg curl exercise. Similarly, mimic just standing there at home, wherever you are, mimic doing a Romanian deadlift, and as you go down to the bottom, put your hands on your hamstrings and then feel them on the way up. Do you feel anything there? Any kind of tension in the hamstrings at all? Can you feel them tighten up? Can you feel them harden up? Once you've gotten your coworkers to stop staring at you and ask you what the hell you're doing, think about that and think about, okay, I'm just standing here and I'm trying to activate my hamstrings. I'm doing the movement, but I can notice, wow, the activation isn't really there. So add that to the to-do list, something to work on. There are all kinds of drills that you can do to improve activation, but ultimately I find that working on your posing is the biggest thing. It's easy because you can do it with no equipment. Keep in mind there are degrees as well. So you can flex a muscle, or you can, all caps, flex a muscle. You can squeeze something, or you can squeeze it harder, and that's certainly what you're going for when you've got under tension when you're doing a lift. If you practice your posing and you do it right, it should be hard work. Like posing practice for a competitor, you might do a 20 or 30 minute posing session. You're going to have a towel, you're going to be covered in sweat if you're not wiping yourself off constantly, just because all that muscle being activated, engaged, and tensed all at the same time, really, really taxing. Really, really taxing. It's a lot of blood required, so the heart pumps, your heart rate gets up, etc. Posing also is a way to work on all of the skills that are important for what you do in the gym without the distraction of actually being in a gym. That's another reason why it's important to work on. And also, when it comes to your progress photos that you should take, even if just for yourself, if you're working with somebody, obviously they're going to want to see your progress photos. But when you get better at hitting the necessary poses for them, it's because your posing is improving, your mind-muscle connection is improving. It's easier to see the changes in your physique as well. I always tell people, and I've heard people get told the opposite of this from other coaches, I don't ever want to see a progress photo where you are relaxed. I only want to see progress photos where you're flexed. Now, I know that does not represent a true indication of what you look like in real life. I'm okay with that because I care about, what is the best we can make you look, especially if we're looking for, competition prep specifically. I want you to show me the most extreme, the smallest waist, the broadest shoulders you can possibly show me. And then from week to week, we can monitor that, see how that changes. I don't want to see a relaxed version because a relaxed version of me when I'm in the off season, like now, and a relaxed version of me when I'm 15 pounds leaner, they're not going to look a whole lot different. Now, if I'm posing, however, yeah, they're going to look different for sure. So, and the summary point here is when you work on posing and you work on muscle activation leads to a higher quality of work that you get done in the gym, and higher quality work is always more effective, so you'll have an easier time growing, you'll have an easier time preserving muscle when you lean out. So that is why posing is important and why you should work on it even if you're not competing. So now that I have put that much more on your plate, geez, Darren, okay, so I've already got to do all these things, and now you want me to pose as well, even though I'm not going to compete. Yeah, I know. I mean, there's a lot to it, so throw yourself into it and give it a shot. The last topic that I wanted to cover, I wasn't sure if we were going to get to it, but we got about 10 minutes left here, so let's do it, is back training 101. So this is kind of a good carryover from posing. We were talking about how it's difficult to activate and engage the lats, and so let's talk about specifically how that applies to back training and how we can improve things. Dramatic pause for a water break. Gulp, gulp, gulp. So, as with everything, back training, the key points when you're working through a back session is flexing the muscle, engaging it, activating it. Stop me if you've heard this before, like 2 minutes ago. The back is complex. There's a lot of layers to it. There's big muscles, there's small muscles, and the thing that adds to the complexity of it is the fact that you can't see it. Unless you've got a really nice mirror set up in your gym, you can never see your back when you're working it. So, if you're doing a curl, you can see, the bicep, it shortens, it lengthens. Okay, I can see it ball up, I can see it contract. So, automatically your brain has a better idea of what it's doing. It's easier to engage a muscle that you can see, things that you can watch in the mirror, chest, shoulders. You can see, muscle fibers twitch. You can see what the pump looks like. So all those things are easier, quads specifically, where people struggle, back, glutes, hamstrings, the things that you can't see. So you can always recognize somebody who is, I would say, beginner to intermediate level, because, from the front, they might look okay, and then you turn around back and like, not a lot of detail in the back. Glutes and hamstrings are underdeveloped compared to everything else because they're harder to grow, for sure. So part of it is just understanding the anatomy. Is an exercise supposed to work the rear delts? Is it supposed to work the lats? Is it supposed to work the traps? Are we trying to hit the spinal erectors more than anything else? Rhomboids, etc. What is the target here? What do those muscles feel like? So go Google, some anatomy charts and figure out, take some progress pics of your back flexed, and see, compare that photo to a photo of an anatomy chart and see if you can identify what's what and where those things are. And then, find exercises that are appropriate for those muscle groups. Go through them and do like really, really high reps, like a set of 30, 40, 50, something like that. Because when you go really high rep like that and you don't do it rapid fire, like when I say 30 reps, I don't mean 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean 1, 2, 3. So, a set of 30, 40, 50 reps is going to take a minute, minute and a half, something like that. Great. When you do a really high rep set like that, whatever you're working is going to burn like a mother. That's your indication. Oh, that's where that muscle is. That's what it feels like when it's firing. So that's a good place to start. So all this stuff requires practice. So one tip that I always give people on back day is to use lifting straps. Failing that, you always want to lift with the loosest possible grip that you can. So the reasoning behind that, if you give something a death grip, like whether you're doing pull-ups, rows, pull-downs, anything like that, whatever you're holding on to, you squeeze it as hard as you can. Your wrists are engaged, your forearms are engaged. Naturally, your biceps are going to engage more. They're going to end up doing more of the work. Your back is going to end up doing less of the work. Not good. Not what we want. So lifting straps allow you to use a looser grip while fatiguing the forearms less. Also, if you have a weaker grip, weaker forearms, then, invariably you're going to end up missing reps or fatiguing before the end of the workout and leaving stuff on the table that you could be doing, but your forearms are too fatigued, so you've got to stop. So no fun. Play around with a variety of angles and tempos. So when it comes to exercise programming, this is something that I always do with back. It's generally something I do with most muscle groups, but especially with back. So go slow to start. Today I hit a back workout and I was working on a wide grip seated row, wide neutral grip seated row. So keeping the elbows out wide, pulling up to chest level. I work on that specifically because it works a part of the back that I have chronically struggled to really feel and to develop to the extent that I want. So the way I started it was my first set, I went nice and light. I did a set of 10 to 12, but I did a 3-second concentric pull. So as you're going from a stretch position and you pull all the way into your chest, it happens over a count of 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000. Nice and slow, and then a good squeeze, and then release and start over. And just like doing a really high rep set, that got, the traps and the rhomboids just really burning. So I'm like, okay, I know where they are now. Now I can bump that weight up a little bit, try and get a little bit of extra work done. So you'll still keep a relatively slow and controlled tempo, still get a good stretch, but not extreme like that. So because I wanted to keep things in a lower rep range, my whole target for today was to go a little on the heavier side, just because a few days ago I did a back workout that was a little bit on the lighter side with some higher rep ranges. So that was the target, but I started out just going really slow because then you can really feel what's happening. You can feel that burn. And again, once you feel that, your brain's like, that's where that muscle is, so that's what we're going to activate, and that's what we're going to try and use for the rest of these sets. The other key thing is to pull with your elbows. So there's a product out there called the Isolator, and I think it's actually made by like Isolator Fitness or something like that. These are things, I think they have a few different products. I should have checked out before I started recording this, but I know they have one, and it's an isolator for back, basically. And they're these little pads that, Velcro around your arm, and then there's clips in there where you can take the pulleys from the cable machines and clip them into this thing. So you are, taking your hands, your wrists, and your forearms out of the equation entirely, and you're focusing on really pulling with your elbows. That is, when I say pull with your elbows, that's the concept. So imagine, imagine you've got tiny little baby hands coming out of your elbows here, and that's what's grabbing onto the bar. Just because focusing on how your humerus moves, the upper arm bone, how it moves, the relationship between your shoulder and your elbow, and how that angle changes as you pull something, that's what makes the back work. So focus less on what your hands are doing, focus more on what your elbows are doing. Your back is a lot stronger than your arms. So one of the reasons why a lot of people struggle when trying to do pull-ups, for example, first of all, well, they're hard. I mean, it's reasonable to struggle. If you're carrying some extra weight as well, it's going to be harder still. So one of the biggest tips I tell people as far as making pull-ups easier, lose some weight. Because if you have less to pull up, you're going to have a better time trying to do that. But by default also, just because, as we've been talking about for about the last 20 minutes here, people struggle with activating their back and getting those muscles fired. So invariably, when people start to do pull-ups, it's an arm exercise, and it shouldn't be. And I don't care who you are, more than likely your arms aren't strong enough to do a pull-up, but your back sure is. And then just realizing how to activate it, how to engage it, how to turn a pull-up into a back exercise, again, focusing on what the elbow is doing and not what the hands are doing, that's a big thing. So just remember that your back is stronger. Start with some assistance there, more assistance than you think you might need, and focus on keeping chest up, shoulders back, pulling with the elbows, and then decrease the resistance. And eventually you'll get to a point where you're like, okay, this is still really hard. But that is how I would recommend working towards unassisted pull-ups. Also think about your back workouts as being, basically there's two, if we really make it simple, there's two basic pulls. There's a horizontal pull and there's a vertical pull. So a vertical pull would be any kind of overhead movement, like a pull down, wide grip, close grip, behind the neck. A straight arm pull down qualifies as well. Horizontal pull would be like a seated cable row, a machine row, T-bar, anything where you're upright or you're bent over and pulling in. It's not an overhead movement basically. And then from there, it's just all about a variety of grips. Wide grip, close grip, reverse grip, pronated, neutral, etc. One side at a time. If you really think about it that way, you can find commonalities between a wide grip pull down and a close grip pull down. Should feel fairly similar. The mechanics are different, but because your hands are forced into different positions, it's going to hit things, the details just a little bit differently. So the big things when it comes to back: understand the anatomy, understand what a specific exercise is supposed to be working, focus on your grip, nice and loose, and focus on pulling with the elbows. If you're struggling, slow things down. Go really high rep on the first set of an exercise with lighter weight to really focus on activation and engagement. So, all right. Hey, look at that. We're pretty much right on time. So I got through all three. I believe this is the first podcast I've done that has 3 topics, with last week being the first one I've ever done that had 1 topic. So we're mixing it up. We're going places, people. That's all there is. That's all I can say. So in the meantime, until next week, again, if anybody has suggestions on stuff, anything that they'd like to hear me go over and talk about, let me know. I'm always happy to welcome suggestions. Also, I checked out the podcast on iTunes just to check it out and see what the listing looked like. There are not enough reviews to give a star rating for this podcast. So my goodness, I would love you forever if you go onto iTunes or the Google Play Store and rate this thing. Leave a comment, something like that. I would love to hear feedback, and plus if it's rated, then more people can find it. So hey, do me a favor. So in the meantime for this week, follow me on social media. That's YouTube, Pinterest, Instagram, Facebook. You can go to the website 5starphysique.com. Check out the workout plans that are up there. Put a ton of work into those. If you're looking for an easy way to kickstart things on your routine, looking for a little bit more structure, have somebody else tell you what to do rather than just doing the workouts that you want to do, because if you're doing stuff that just you want to do, chances are you're doing stuff you're already good at, whereas following a plan that somebody else has written, it might force you to do things that you haven't done before that you're weak at and need to improve on. So check that out. And also hit me up on Spotify. Just search for 5-Star Physique, all one word. Check out the playlist that I have there if you are a rock or metal fan. If you're not, don't bother. There's nothing there for you. So that's all I got. So until next week, I appreciate you all for listening. Thank you very much for watching online and watching live on Instagram and on Facebook. Thank you all. So I will catch you all next week. And in the meantime, have a good one. Woo. All right. Thank you for listening. Instagram, we will end you right now. Thank you. Right? And live video. And Facebook, thank you as well. We will finish you guys off too.